I'm going in search of witches.
Witches.
Witches. I guess you found me out, huh? Yeah. You should come around here on Halloween. You'd really see something then.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we all jump off the roof and fly.
You know, sort of like a coven.
You have placed Vesta under some strange sexual spell.
At what time will we be spellcasting? Put a spell on you.
Hey there, witches, and welcome to Moonstone Witchery, the podcast where we talk about witchcraft and spirituality in a modern context. My name is Rhiann Lockard, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Let's just get right to it today. I made a cool post, and I asked people to chime in. This is in the Facebook group, on what kind of podcast topics they would like. And so, even though I have this season planned out for y'all, and I'm going to be dropping the most, seemingly sort of all at once over the next couple days, maybe week or two, I got a couple requests for a topic that I thought was cool, so I bumped it up in the line of episodes that I am going to be making. I was asked, and shout out to Melissa, I was asked by a couple people to talk about protection, but not just to talk about protection of the self, but to talk about protection of others, the ways that we're able to send protection, influence the protective energy field of other people, the ways we're able to focus that intention and do what we can to influence their energy. And Melissa's question was specifically around protecting her children, which I obviously personal experience and being a mom and all that. I was like, oh, this is such a cute and helpful and important question. And then we had another couple of requests about protecting just other loved ones in general, protecting animals, protecting the home. And I thought, this is such like a treasure trove topic. There's really so much to dig into when it comes to protection. So I was like, let's fast track the cool topic and let's talk about it now. So here we are. Now, if you are on any of my social medias, I have a couple spots where I've taught how to make a protection spell and how to ward your home. The word warding simply means protecting. The word warding has an implication to it that you are going to be putting out signs or symbols or intentional kinds of magic that you are placing around a property in physical form of one way or another. So for me, protection spells are more energetic, perhaps less tangible, whereas warding has a tangible, to a degree, kind of component to it. If I'm warding my property, I am leaving little charms or enchanted talismans, or I am drawing specific symbols in oil or blessed waters, moon water, salt water, something along those lines. But I'm drawing or painting sigils or symbols on certain places of my property. A ward to me is like a noun in a way, meaning that it is something that has its energy been shifted to that of radiant protection. So like a fence is a mundane example of a ward. And just for a language thing right there, when we say mundane versus magical, because you might hear this or read it or come across it in certain spiritual witchy kinds of groups. Mundane means do the normal things, like do the non-magical things. Now, of course, we could go in a little mini rabbit hole and discuss how everything is magic, blah, 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 but that's not the point. That's neither here nor there right now. So if I want boundaries with another person, are there spells? Are there, mystical, magical things I could do to create boundaries? Yes. The mundane thing I would do would be to speak to a person and to say, I no longer wish for you to contact me. Or to say, if we're going to know each other, this is how it's going to go. Or whatever. Establishing a boundary in verbal communication is an example of a mundane practice that is in alignment with the spiritual practice. But you'd be surprised how many people don't do the mundane things. And as a side tangent, this is a point of spiritual self-work for yourself or shadow work, because a lot of times people want to utilize witchcraft or spirituality to kind of like get something achieved that they are afraid to do themselves in regular reality. So if I'm too scared to have a conversation about boundaries with a person, I might decide to just like sneak around through the back door and do like a binding on them or put them in a freezer or something like that. But this is going to be less effective than if I had done both. The reason is because we are using our magic to shift the physical world that we inhabit. But if we don't physically show up to the physical world that we inhabit in alignment with the energetic moves we're making, then of course we're not going to have ease of the manifestation of that spell. I want you to go listen to the podcast that I did, the episode that says like no self-sabotage allowed, because in that one I'm talking about the ways in which we accidentally break our own spell work. It's so much more common than we realize. So if you want to have boundaries with a person, the mundane tasks are to change how you communicate, to stop accepting their phone calls or their texts, maybe to unfriend them on social media, or at minimum to restrict their access to you in those ways. You don't go out of your way to see them. You don't go out of your way to be helpful for them. And the baby steps would be those tasks. The ultimate level of boundaries, if you're trying to have a person out of your life, that is to like cut them out of your life. Now, I understand we're not all confrontational, but I think it's a misnomer to assume that all boundary establishment has to be confrontation. Because in actuality, establishing a boundary is not a conversation, just so you know. A conversation is an exchange of ideas. A conversation happens when we are trying to convey a concept and receive someone else's thoughts or opinions or input on that concept. And then we listen as they convey a concept and we share our thoughts of feelings and opinions on their concept, or we exchange dialogue. This is what a conversation is. If I am coming to someone with a conversation, it's because I'm looking for their input or their thoughts or their ideas. If I am setting a boundary, that is no longer a conversation. That is a decision that has been made. And so when I work with my coaching clients on boundaries, I say, please remember, setting a boundary is an information session. It is not a conversation. And what I mean by that is setting a boundary is kind of like giving a PowerPoint presentation in which you do not accept feedback or questions at the end, right? It's like, here is what's going to happen. And that's it. Now, really, what I just said goes with that saying that we've all kind of heard floating around from time to time over the years. It's just like, no is a complete sentence. This is so super hard for many of us because, especially if we were raised as women or women identifying people or girls or whatever, we were really taught to explain ourselves, to deliver our information in the least offensive way possible, to super look out for other people's feelings, to read the energy of the circumstance as we're doing the thing and to shift it accordingly, blah, blah, blah. And so someone can go into a situation trying to establish a boundary and they can come out having compromised almost all the way to nothing because they were persuaded by really the social niceties of the circumstance more than anything else, or their fear. So this is why a lot of people bypass the mundane work, because it's so hard to overcome all the conditioning that you're carrying around. And yet, if you need boundaries, what the universe and your higher self is really telling you is you must overcome the self-work that tells you that it's too hard. The spell work can boost you, but it can't do it for you. It can boost you, but it can't do it for you. So you can go ahead and throw someone in the freezer or throw someone's name in the freezer, but you can't, the spell itself can't make the decision for you to not let them in your house if they show up at your door. That's a mundane action that you have to take. So if you're giving someone a boundary, it's an information session where you are saying, I am no longer going to be allowing you to have access to my Facebook because I don't like the way it turns out when you are on my social media. That is what's happening from here on out. Thank you and good night. And then we do not engage in conversation about that boundary. It is an information session. You are giving the person information and that is it. The decision has been made. It is not a conversation. So just take that, stick it in your pocket somewhere. Boundaries are not up for debate because boundaries are here to protect our own feelings of safety and well-being and groundedness and being okay. You know, my definition of abusive behavior is someone who intentionally destroys, overlooks, bypasses, or steamrolls another person's boundaries. If we don't know what the person's boundaries are, we can be accidentally abusive or harmful by crossing the boundary. And often we don't know what a boundary is until we encounter it. However, once a boundary has been established and we cross that boundary knowing that it exists, we are being abusive. And in this way, we can be abusive towards ourselves, by the way. So, just my little side tangent on boundaries, because fundamentally, protection work is about boundaries. And so, as I was saying, I have several videos and points of teaching places about protection work. I wonder if I think I might have a podcast episode on it already, but I know I have a YouTube video about how to make a protection jar. I've done some TikToks that are protection aligned, I believe. I know I've done a YouTube video on how to cleanse and ward your house. And then, of course, in the academy, I have taught protection as well. In the Witchcraft Academy. So there's several resources for you, but when we're talking about protecting others, I think that there's some things to think about and consider. Whenever I hear the topic of protection for others, especially our children, come up, I am reminded of a saying that I heard that said something along the lines of your grandmother's prayers are still protecting you. And I just think that's so profoundly beautiful and wonderful and magical. I think for me, it comes from a place of never feeling loved or really nurtured or cared for. And to think that maybe my grandmother once prayed a prayer for me and maybe it mattered. Like, that's so beautiful and kind to think about for me. But we can take that a step farther, and as with all things, we go from being the subject of the statement to being like, I don't know, the alternative subject of the statement. I was an English major, but I don't know that grammar right there. I'm saying, like, instead of being the you in the sentence, we shift into the grandmother when we decide to do witchcraft. We shift into the person whose prayers are so powerful that they linger over someone for their lifetime, even beyond our own lifetime. Isn't that, like, beautiful? And of course, in that sentence, the word prayers just means intentions or spells or energy, positivity, whatever word works for you, because it's all kind of the same thing. But when we are offering protection energetically, it doesn't have a timeline. It doesn't have an end game. Especially if we are encapsulating that spell work in a jar or a box or a little world of some kind, in a protective amulet or piece of jewelry or something along those lines, or keeping it in like a perpetual crystal grid perhaps, or just having candles that we keep that are blessed and anointed and lit for somebody's specific protection energy. But there's so many ways to do this. Now, as with love spells, let's have a brief momentary convo. The internet gets so mad about love spells, like, oh my God, it gets so mad, right? And yet, I'm going to say a thing. We might not like it, but we create and construct these like really intense like dating profiles with like our filtered photos on them and like quippy little clever sentences and like the right sequence of photos to encapsulate our personalities. Like, here's me being like pleasant and nice and approachable, and now here's me being like sultry and like sexy bedroom eyes, and then like here's me like being adventurous, and now here's me being like super silly, and like here's me being like out in nature with my animals. Like, we're like creating a narration that sort of tries to show who we are in a positive and specific way. Is that not a spell that we are casting, though? We put so much thought and energy into the words we write and the images we choose and the emojis we're using and the way we might interact with others, and infusing anything with that much intention so it can persuade the mind of someone else is definitely a spell in my eyes. So when there's so much shade being thrown at love spells, I think a couple things are happening. Like, on the one hand, I think we might be giving ourselves a little too much credit, thinking we're all like Gandalf the Grey out here. Like, I'm going to enchant you and you will never think for yourself again. Like, I don't know that some, random person in their bedroom with a pink candle has that much authority over another person's ultimate and complete free will. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's an influencing factor, but so is perfume, right? Like, I know I might get shade for this. I'm hiding it in this protection episode, which I'm not trying to do on purpose. I just ended up here, as we know, somehow happens to me. But I'm just saying, like, yes, casting a spell on another person is a thing, right? Like, it is in trying to influence their world. But so is having a conversation with them, right? Like, So is wearing a certain type of outfit. So is like staging a chance encounter with someone. So is creating your profile online. So is like making their dad his favorite dinner and dropping it off so that, you know, your love interest hears that you care about his family members. Like there's lots of things that we do that influence other people, but ultimately, and this is important for you to know, we all have our own free will. And I hate to tell you this, but no one and nothing can ever take away our own free will. So, I mean, even if you are like the expert love spell caster of the universe, you can only heavily influence someone's free will. They can resist it if they so choose. So just keep this in mind, because I am pro-consent. I don't like it when we get involved against someone's wishes. And I guess that's part of the thing with the love spells. People who tend to be drawn to casting love spells upon people, and I promise this pertains to protection. You are still in the protection episode. I have to lay this groundwork first so I can get to the point I'm making, okay? So hang in here with me. People who have a propensity to cast love spells are often doing so in the face of being told that the other person is not interested, not here for it, not having it. So there is the problem. The problem isn't actually, in my eyes and in my eyes alone, the problem isn't actually that we think love spells are inherently bad or wrong. Because I'll tell you the truth, like, if you're in a committed relationship with someone and you guys are having a hard time, like, go the fuck ahead and cast a love spell on your relationship. Why are you not doing that? Because if you're both having a hard time, the love spell is going to remind you of the love that's already there. Cast some love spells on your damn selves. The problem with love spells that people have an issue with, but no one's actually articulating this correctly, I don't think it is so much that it is against free will. I mean, yes, to a degree. But see, that sentence alone is like, it's against free will, which means, remember, we're going to take apart sentences, which means someone has said, I am not interested in you. And this person who wishes to cast the spell work has convinced themselves that, oh, they don't know what they're talking about for themselves. I know better than them, so I'm going to do some energy work, some spell casting to persuade them to change their mind. Now that is a problem for me. Because remember, I just said abusive behavior is hearing a boundary and intentionally crossing it, right? And so if someone has said, I like you as a friend, but I'm not into it, that is not an invitation to do a love spell. You have an issue if you are hearing someone say that and you are still invested in them changing their mind or the relationship changing. Okay? Those are the bad love spells. Those are the coercive ones. Those are the ones that trample upon free will. Those are problematic AF. Don't do those spells. That is not okay. Especially we're living in consent culture, especially so many women, non-binary individuals are out here trying to get their rights heard, trying to be able to have validity to no meaning no. Okay, this is a real thing. So if someone in your life has said they're not interested in a relationship with you, that is not an invitation for a love spell, my friend. It's just not. And in fact, a love spell is the wrong move there anyway. You don't want a love spell for someone who has expressed no interest in you. If anything, you want a neutrality spell or something that kind of swings the pendulum back. You want peace. You want conflict resolution. You want a road opener. You don't want, I mean, a love spell is just counterintuitive. It doesn't even make any sense, but whatever. So, okay. The reason I bring this up is because if we are asking about protection spells for other people, the issue of consent comes in, right? Because if I'm going to be casting a spell upon other people, is consent part of that situation? And so I had to go on this little meandering path down the love spell road because I wanted you to understand that yes, consent is important, but consent with spell work, I think, is kind of misunderstood because we're being presumptive. We're making assumptions about certain things, like in regards to the love spells. We are assuming that all love spells go against someone's free will, but that's not the case. The love spells that go against a person's free will are bad, but not all love spells do that, okay? And I also want us to really get realistic about all the many ways that we are influencing the world around us at all times by intentionally shifting and playing with the energy field, because all of that is spellcasting. Okay, so I have a belief, and my guides have talked to me about this, but your mileage may vary. Do what works for you. But I have a belief that until the age of autonomous thought and choice, meaning until we grow into our own capacity for free will, until we're able to objectively hold thoughts in our mind and make decisions based on those thoughts, until we reach that age, a mother's energy is in charge of our energy. Meaning, like, if my child hasn't reached the age of autonomous thought and subjective, like, freedom of choice, freedom of action, free will, whether they're actually allowed to make the choices they decide is a completely different conversation. But until my child has reached the capacity to think a thought to themselves, I would like to do this, I'm going to do that. And I don't mean like, I would like to go put my truck on the shelf. I mean like, I'm going to choose to not do my homework today. I'm going to choose to ignore my mom's rules about wearing my helmet with riding a bike, blah, blah, blah. Until they've reached those ages, we have complete authority over their energy field. We being the mother or father or parental, non-binary, whatever, parental figure over a child's energy field. This is because they still just kind of belong in the fold of us for a long time. Now, as a child begins to grow into themselves, we can still influence their energetic field, but we don't have complete authority over it in the same capacity as we once did. And that's okay. So if your child is not yet at that point within themselves, and let's say they're having nightmares or they're seeing things that you don't want them to see or whatever's going on, you're allowed to lay hands on them or sit by them as they're sleeping or whatever, and you command all the energy around them to do what you tell it to do. You're in charge of that. You don't need to cast a spell upon them so much as you just talk to the energy around your child the same way you would talk to the energy around yourself. And if you don't have practice with this, start practicing, okay? Just start doing it. Command the energy of your own life at all times to do what you tell it to do. You're the witch. You're in charge. The energy around you has to listen to you. Now, if your child has their own freedom of thought and action and they are capable of opting out of what you want, that's where you want to go to spell work. Because what spell work's going to do is make suggestions to their higher self and their energy field. And it's going to invite all of that into cooperation with itself. And so there's a couple ways that we can cast protection spells upon our children or our friends or our family members. The first way is to, well, I don't know why this is first. This is just the first one that's coming to me. There's really no order of these. So just pick what you like. one of the ways is to create a protection jar. Now, I definitely have videos on this that you can go and watch and consult with somewhere. Check YouTube. That's where I have one of them. But creating a protection jar means that you're going to like turn a little jar into its own little world. And that world is made of protection energy. Whatever happens in that world is like a metaphor for whatever's going to happen in the big other real world that we inhabit right now. So you would put like hair or a tooth or nail clippings or something, a photo, their name, whatever, something belonging to your child or the target. It's ideal if you can have something of theirs that goes in the jar. But if you don't, you can just write their name and have a photo, or just write their name alone on a piece of paper. And that's going into the protection jar. Now, if you're writing a petition, which is the piece of paper that has the spell on it, you don't want that to be simply their name, right? You write their name, their date of birth, their location. If their location is subject to change, you don't have to put their location. You can put their birth location if you know it, or you can leave that just off of the petition. Then you turn the paper and you cross-write the spell work. So you would write a sentence that was protection aligned, is permanently and divinely protected from all forms of harm, like mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And then you would turn it again. This is, I like to have a time frame and like an assertion about it. I would say something like, this is immediate and permanent. Then you turn that paper again and you say, thank you so much and gratitude, so it is done, or whatever. That spell goes into the protection jar. Then we load that jar up, because remember, we're creating a world for this slice of this person's energy is going to go live in a world of protection. It's going to live in this divinely protected, safe, magical space that nothing can harm it. And so you can put like crystals in there. You can sweep the paper with protection oil. You can put salt in there. You can put cat claws or rose thorns or little what are those little spiky balls that falls out of trees sometimes? You can put a lot of different things that are protection aligned into this jar. Cat claws, rose thorns, those things are there to protect the animal or the plant. They harm. Okay? But if you don't like imagery like that, don't put it in there. Just put crystals, put some salt in there, put some black salt in there, put whatever it is that works for you. Whatever you want that represents protection to you, you can put in there. You can either do a wet jar or a dry jar. A wet jar is going to be full of oils and waters. And a dry jar is going to be more like rocks and minerals and things of that nature. And then you're going to seal your protection jar. You're going to infuse it with a lot of intention, meaning, you're going to tell the jar about itself. Everything that's contained in this jar is divinely and permanently protected. Blessed be, and so it is done. And then I like to burn a candle carved for protection on top of my protection jars. I am like losing my voice today. I don't know what's happening. Sorry about it. But then I like to burn a protection aligned candle on top of my jars. Black is protection. Carve it, stick it on there. And then you can burn that candle. You can align it with the moon phase that you want to. New moons and full moons are great for protection energy. You can burn it for several nights in a row. I tend to like to do 3 nights personally, but there's no set in stone rule. And then you can keep it somewhere sacred or special, or you can bury it in your backyard or anywhere that you so choose. As long as the jar remains sealed, the protection spell is effective. Full stop. And if you feel like it needs some invigorating, or somehow some of the spell work has been broken in some capacity, you can light another candle on top of it, charge that spell jar under the full moon. You can make a completely different one. Whatever you want to do, you're in charge. So that's a protection jar. You can also just light a protection candle. Go ahead and get a black candle or use a white one if you'd like. Carve the name, carve the spell, roll it in some salt if you want to. Do all the witchy things. Put it in a circle of salts. Burn that candle and let that be done. You can take a framed photo of the person that you are hoping to protect. You can put magic blessed protection oil upon that photo. You can write in a flat marker on the back of it, the way our grandmoms used to do, but mine used pen, a protection spell, and then put it in a frame and hang it on the wall. That person's image is now infused with that energetic protection. It's really, really powerful. You can have a photo of them sitting somewhere in a ring of salt, thereby representing that no matter where they are protected by this bubble. So activate, moms, if you're doing this for your kids and you're still in charge of their energy somewhat, activate their angelic support team on a regular basis. Say my child's name, like let's say my child was named Leon. Leon's angels, please go and support and protect and help Leon throughout his day. Thank you. Because our angelic and divine support team really needs to be requested to be activated. But parents can activate those energies themselves while we're still in that gray zone where we're in charge of their energy. Use that. Command them to sleep, command them to be protected, command them to do what you want. If your child's not home and you're worried about them, use your energetic cords that you're connected to them with to check on them. Seriously. Visualize yourself crawling through the energy cord that connects you and your child, and catch their vibe from wherever they are to wherever you are. Send them information you want them to have. Activate their spiritual teams. As for other layers, I am really into buying or creating crystal bags that I put in my kids' backpacks that are protection aligned. They also have keychains that you can get, for a while in the witchy subscription box that we send out every month from Moonstone Witchery. We had these really cool, they're so glittery and beautiful, and I never keep anything for myself, and I wish I had kept one. But we sent out these really cool pyrite keychains that had these beautiful pieces of pyrite on them. If I had received one of those, I would have anointed it in protection oil and put it on my child's backpack, because pyrite's a really protective stone, but it's also positive energy and good luck. So it would have been bringing them good things while protecting them from bad things. Okay. But you can draw little sigils, even if it's just in salt water on their backpack. You can draw little sigils on the tags of all their clothing. Clothing itself is a protection item because we wear clothes to protect our bodies from the sun or the rain or whatever, the elements, the eyes of others. So the clothes are already protective aligned. So you're working with the energy of clothing in order to increase the protection. Draw little protection sigils or symbols on the tags of all their clothes. A really quick and easy one is a pentacle. The star in a circle, that is a protection sign. It's a protection symbol. Put protection. One of the things Melissa said was she draws protection sigils on her kids' shoes. I thought that was so freaking awesome. But you can paint the bottoms of their shoes in protection oil. Everywhere they step, they will be divinely protected. Okay? This is really about just getting creative. Lay your hands on them. Whenever my kids get on the bus, I draw a protection sigil in the air on the bus and I send it to the bus because I want those kids to be safe, right? You can teach your children how to invoke their own protection. So if they're feeling scared or nervous, just teach them to say, angels help me be safe right now. Angels protect me. Children seem really comfortable with the language and the wording of angels. But if they prefer, you can say guides or spirit or source or God or whatever it is that you think your child will really gravitate towards. But they need to learn to call upon their divine support themselves, because as they, grow up and move away from us, and I don't even just mean physically, I mean like mentally and emotionally, which are the first moves they make, they need to be able to know that they can depend on themselves enough to call forth these entities and beings to help them. You can make them lunch and bless their food with protection energy. You can do all the things. I want you to look up the study by, this is so old at this point, but there's this guy, Dr. Emoto, and he studied how water absorbs the suggestions of the words written upon the container which holds the water. Meaning, if I write the word happy on a glass water bottle, and then they do some molecular photography and look at the water, the molecules of the water look really different than if I write the word angry on the water and then they take a picture of that. So you can bless your children's water bottles, because I don't know about you, but mine take water with them every day to school. You can infuse their water with moon water, because the way that water works, by the way, it's transference. So if I add a little bit of blessed water to a larger container, all the water in that container becomes blessed. So you can spread it out along the way just by doing that. You can also teach your children to start to notice their animal guides and to call upon their animal guides for protection, because I have a theory that the original animal guide that we are graced with is there for our protection in some way or another, because we are vulnerable and young and small when we first have an animal guide saunter into our lives. And so if your child has a favorite animal that they always are drawn to, ask them to begin to imagine when they are scared that they have, their cool wolf with them, or ask them to imagine that they have whatever their animal is, like a warrior dolphin with them that will always take care of them and help them swim out of trouble. Whatever it is, teach your children about visualization and summoning their support team to you. When it comes to protecting adults that we want to send protection energy to, it's a lot of the same thing. A little tougher with adults because there's some stubbornness there, and because they tend to feel weird evoking their angelic or spiritual support team, or they feel weird visualizing an animal with them. I like to get, so on my back, I have a tattoo of one of my animal guides, because it makes me feel like I am constantly offering the acknowledgement of that guide for being with me, and I'm therefore constantly charging and enacting the presence of that guide in my life. So as an adult, we can have a tattoo, or we can wear a pendant or a shirt or something like that that claims attachment to that guide and therefore that guide's energy. But all the same things work for adults. If you're worried about someone, if you have a partner and you're trying to protect their energy, take a necklace or a ring or a fancy card they can carry in their wallet or their shoes or whatever, and anoint all of that with protection oil. You can buy from a trusted witch, or you can buy, I have someone in my shop, not in my shop. I have a vendor that I recently approved, and she makes really cool oils. Her business is Ajaba Naturals, AJABA naturals.com. She makes protection oil, and I can vouch for her as a good vendor. But regardless, blah, blah, blah. I want you to anoint their items with protection oil. I want you to carve a candle and set it next to their stuff. I want you to throw salt on everything that belongs to them. I want you to pray or infuse a pendant or a bracelet with their protection energy for them and have them wear it. If your partner drives a lot for a living, go out with a paintbrush and some blessed water or some oil or something and paint some protection sigils on their vehicle. Put some protection oil on their vehicle. I don't want to get in trouble if it messes up their paint or anything, so be careful with where you put it. But these are the things that we can do to send protection to a person. I'm really partial to crystal grids for protection. Put someone's name in the center of a crystal grid and activate that grid with selenite or blessed water or music or bells or chanting or incense or however you like to do it, dancing, and let it be perpetually protecting them. Okay? The thing that we have to overcome is the thought that whatever we're doing is not good enough. Because if someone else was doing those things for you, it would matter. Like how I was talking about how the thought that maybe my grandmother once prayed something about me and it still matters, how that was moving to me. If someone else is trying to send us something positive or negative or either, it feels like this big, real, vivid, powerful thing. But when we're doing it ourselves, we are so full of doubt. And that's sad in my eyes. I don't like that for us. The things you do really matter. They make a huge difference. It's all energy. So wherever you direct your energy, it's going to matter. So take the time, and this helps us feel better when we're in a state of anxiety. It gives us something to do. Light protection incense and think about the person. A really simple way of casting a spell is to take a stick of incense and talk to it and light it and let it burn, and that counts. There are so many things you can do. If you're willing to get creative, if you're willing to trust yourself, if you're willing to think about it, if you're willing to believe that it's possible, you can dispatch your own guides or angels to go activate someone else's guides or angels. You can send them messages from your heart space to theirs. There's an infinite number of things to do. The only limitation is your own creative energy, okay? And your own belief in yourself. So I am proud of you for wanting to practice. I'm proud of you for practicing practice. I'm proud of you for even being open to the idea that maybe you're good enough exactly as you are. Because I believe you are. In fact, I know you are. Thank you for listening to me today. I would love to have you in my Witchcraft Academy where we get to have conversations like this one-on-one all the time with lots of cool other people, and I get to teach you all the fun things. But if not, I'd love to see you in my Facebook group or on any of my other platforms. Find me on TikTok and send me a hello because I love to hear from you, and I hope that you have a very magical, witchy, and blessed rest of your day.